Relationships are built on trust, communication, and emotional connection. When these foundations start to crumble, it can be difficult to understand what went wrong, especially when it feels like everything was fine just a short while ago. One of the most subtle yet telling signs that your partner might be falling out of love with you is when they stop sharing their thoughts and feelings. At the beginning of a relationship, everything seems effortless. You can't wait to tell each other about your day, your dreams, your fears, and everything in between. Those intimate conversations where you bared your soul to each other were once the glue that kept you close. But when your partner stops sharing those intimate details, it can leave you wondering if they're hiding something, or if the bond you once had is slipping away. Think about the last time you and your partner sat down and truly talked about how you were feeling, your dreams, your worries, your hopes for the future. If it's been a while, you're not alone. In fact, a shift in emotional communication is one of the clearest signs that something has changed in the relationship. Relationships thrive on emotional openness, and without it, the connection between partners begins to fade. You start to feel like you're speaking to a stranger rather than the person who once knew you better than anyone else. It might feel like an unspoken distance growing between you, as if you're no longer on the same wavelength. When your partner stops sharing their thoughts, it's not just about the conversations that no longer happen. It's the absence of the emotional closeness that once defined the relationship. It's the quiet moments that used to be filled with laughter, support, and understanding, now replaced by an uncomfortable silence. Over time, this shift can cause feelings of confusion and hurt. You may begin to question whether you've done something wrong, or if your partner's feelings have changed. Without the reassurance of shared experiences and feelings, it becomes hard to know where you stand. But there's more to it than just the loss of deep, intimate conversations. When your partner stops confiding in you, they might become more distant in other aspects of the relationship as well. They could stop opening up about their day, their worries, or the small things that used to matter to them. Instead of coming to you with problems or celebrations, they might choose to keep things to themselves, or turn to others for support. This can leave you feeling like you're not an important part of their life anymore. The absence of communication can be a slow but steady form of emotional detachment. At first, it might not seem like a big deal. After all, everyone has their moments of needing space. But over time, this silence builds up, and the emotional distance becomes harder to ignore. The person who once shared their world with you may begin to feel like a stranger, and that is when the relationship starts to feel hollow. So, when your partner stops sharing their thoughts and feelings, it's not just about missing conversations, it's about missing the person they once were in the relationship and the bond you once shared. And that, my friend, is one of the clearest signs that love may no longer be what it once was. 1. They rarely initiate conversations or contact. When a relationship starts to fade, one of the most telling signs is that communication begins to dwindle. In the early stages of love, couples are constantly in touch, sharing thoughts, feelings, and updates about their day. Conversations flow naturally, and there's a sense of eagerness to hear from each other. However, if your partner rarely initiates conversations or contact, it could indicate that their interest in the relationship is starting to wane. At the beginning of a relationship, communication feels effortless. You might find yourselves texting throughout the day or making calls just to hear each other's voice. There's a consistent desire to stay connected, whether it's through a simple good morning message or an in-depth conversation about the things that matter. Over time, however, as the relationship begins to lose its spark, the frequency of these interactions decreases. If you find that you're always the one reaching out, it can feel discouraging and disheartening. When your partner no longer makes an effort to contact you first, it can leave you feeling emotionally distant. It's not just about the lack of texts or phone calls. It's the absence of the little things that used to show they cared. In the past, you might have received spontaneous messages, or your partner might have made the effort to check in with you throughout the day. These small gestures are often signs of affection, care, and investment in the relationship. If these gestures disappear, it can make you question their level of interest or commitment. This lack of initiative may also manifest in how often they engage in the relationship. If you're always the one to suggest hanging out, making plans, or doing something together, it may feel like you're carrying the weight of the relationship on your own. A relationship should be a mutual effort, with both partners equally contributing to its success and growth. If your partner isn't taking the lead in communication, it can suggest that they are no longer fully invested, or perhaps are no longer as interested in nurturing the bond you share. Another aspect to consider is how this lack of initiative affects your emotional connection. When communication begins to fade, it's not just about the absence of words, but also the emotional void that follows. In a healthy relationship, regular contact helps to maintain a sense of intimacy and emotional closeness. But when your partner stops reaching out, it can lead to feelings of isolation and uncertainty. You may start to wonder if they still care about you, or if they've lost interest in the relationship altogether. Sometimes, people may not even realize that they are pulling away, but the signs are evident to the person on the receiving end. It's important to note that this doesn't always mean your partner is consciously deciding to disengage. In some cases, they may be going through personal issues, experiencing stress, or struggling with their own emotions. However, if the lack of initiative continues for an extended period, it can become a clear indicator that the emotional connection is starting to weaken. In a thriving relationship, both individuals should feel comfortable reaching out and maintaining open lines of communication. When one partner consistently fails to initiate contact or conversation, it can create an imbalance and lead to growing distance between the two. This shift often signals that the relationship is no longer a priority for them, or that they are losing interest in the bond you once shared. It's important to acknowledge these signs early on and consider what they might mean for the future of the relationship. 2. They no longer make future plans with you. When a relationship is thriving, making future plans together is a natural and essential part of the connection. Whether it's planning a vacation, discussing long-term goals, or simply imagining the next few months together, these shared visions create a sense of commitment and anticipation. However, if your partner no longer makes plans for the future with you, it could be a clear indication that their feelings for you have started to change. The absence of future planning can feel like a cold wake-up call. In the beginning, it's common to talk about where you see yourselves in the next few years. Maybe you discussed moving in together, traveling the world, or building a life side by side. These conversations, while often light-hearted at first, are also reflections of a deeper investment in the relationship. They show that both partners are looking forward to a shared future and are emotionally committed to the long haul. When this element of the relationship disappears, it can leave you feeling uncertain about where you stand. If your partner avoids discussions about the future or brushes off your attempts to make plans, it suggests that they may no longer view you as a part of their long-term vision. They might be content with the present moment, but unwilling to make any commitments for what's ahead. This shift is often subtle at first, but over time, it becomes increasingly noticeable. If you find that your partner no longer includes you in their future, it may feel like you've become an afterthought in their life. For example, when planning events or gatherings, they no longer ask for your opinion or consider your availability. Instead of discussing potential vacations, they may opt to make solo plans or with friends, without giving a second thought to including you. Even simple things like planning for the next few months, whether it's about an upcoming celebration or a routine weekend trip, might be met with indifference or a lack of interest. The inability or unwillingness to discuss future plans can also create feelings of emotional distance. Relationships thrive when there's a sense of shared goals and mutual growth. Without the intention to make plans together, there is a lack of forward momentum in the relationship. This stagnation can feel isolating and frustrating, especially if one person is still committed to building a future together while the other is pulling away. It's also possible that your partner's avoidance of future planning is a result of emotional disengagement. Sometimes, people stop making plans for the future when they begin to lose their emotional connection. They might be avoiding future discussions because deep down they know they no longer want to invest time or energy in the relationship. It could be a form of emotional self-protection, where they are subconsciously distancing themselves to avoid the pain of acknowledging that the relationship might not last. Another significant aspect of this shift is the lack of discussions about important life milestones. In a committed relationship, it's natural to talk about where you want to live, whether you want children, or what kind of future you hope to create together. If these conversations are completely absent or dismissed, it's an indication that your partner may not see you in their future plans, at least not in the same way they did before. This lack of engagement in future planning can lead to feelings of confusion and anxiety about the direction of the relationship. When one partner no longer wants to make future plans, it can cause a sense of imbalance in the relationship. One person may be excited about the future, full of ideas and dreams, while the other avoids discussing any aspect of what's to come. This dynamic can lead to a growing disconnect, as one person's hopes for the relationship clash with the other's reluctance to envision a shared future. In a healthy relationship, both partners should be eager to make plans for the future, even if they are small steps or just ideas that can be built upon over time. If your partner no longer engages in these conversations, it's essential to address the issue, as it could signal a deeper problem in the relationship. It's important to consider whether the lack of future planning is something temporary or a more permanent shift in their feelings and commitment. 3. They avoid spending quality time together. When a relationship is flourishing, spending quality time together is one of the most important aspects that strengthen the bond between two people. Whether it's a cozy evening at home, a spontaneous outing, or simply sharing a quiet moment, these shared experiences help build a deeper emotional connection. However, if your partner starts avoiding spending quality time with you, it's a sign that something in the relationship may be changing. Quality time isn't just about physical presence. It's about being fully engaged with each other. It's about enjoying each other's company, creating memories, and deepening your connection. In the beginning stages of a relationship, you may have found that your partner wanted to spend as much time as possible with you, whether it was through weekend adventures, late-night conversations, or quiet dinners. These moments create a sense of intimacy and mutual care. But when your partner starts pulling away from these moments, it can lead to a sense of emotional disconnection. Avoiding quality time together often starts slowly, with small changes in behavior. Your partner may start coming up with excuses to avoid spending time with you, such as being busy with work or personal commitments. They may suggest that they need some alone time, or perhaps they prioritize other people or activities over being with you. While everyone needs personal space and time to themselves, consistently avoiding time together can indicate a lack of interest in nurturing the relationship. One of the most noticeable signs is when your partner shows little interest in doing things with you. In healthy relationships, both partners are excited to plan activities together, whether it's watching a movie, cooking dinner, or going on a hike. But if your partner consistently turns down invitations to spend time together, or makes excuses to avoid it, it can leave you feeling neglected. It's not just about the quantity of time, but the quality of that time. When your partner avoids these meaningful moments, it often signals that they are withdrawing emotionally. This avoidance of quality time can also make you feel like you're no longer a priority. In a loving relationship, both individuals want to invest in each other's happiness and well-being. They make an effort to be present, to listen, and to share moments of joy together. However, when your partner stops initiating plans or cancels time together, it can make you feel as though you're no longer important to them. This can lead to feelings of loneliness and frustration, as you may begin to question where you stand in their life. In some cases, this avoidance could also be a form of emotional withdrawal, When someone begins to lose interest in a relationship, they may start distancing themselves from their partner, not only emotionally, but physically as well. By avoiding quality time, they might be trying to protect themselves from further emotional investment, or might not want to face the reality that their feelings have changed. This can be a painful realization, especially if you are still invested in the relationship and trying to make it work. The impact of avoiding quality time extends beyond the individual moments missed. It affects the overall dynamic of the relationship. Without time spent together, it's difficult to nurture trust, affection, and mutual understanding. Over time, this lack of connection can lead to a growing gap between you and your partner. What once was a deeply connected bond can start to feel like a distant acquaintance relationship, where both parties are simply coexisting rather than sharing a meaningful connection. It's important to address this issue when you start noticing it. Communication is key in any relationship, and if your partner is avoiding quality time together, it's essential to have an open conversation about why it's happening. There may be underlying reasons, such as stress, personal struggles, or dissatisfaction with the relationship, that need to be addressed. However, if the avoidance of quality time becomes a consistent pattern, it could indicate that the emotional investment in the relationship is no longer the same. In a healthy relationship, both partners should make an effort to spend quality time together, even in small ways. This shared time reinforces the emotional connection and keeps the relationship strong. If your partner starts avoiding this, it's crucial to evaluate the relationship's direction and what might need to change to reconnect emotionally. 4. They stop showing physical affection. Physical affection is often one of the most telling indicators of emotional closeness in a relationship. A simple touch, a warm hug, or a gentle kiss can communicate feelings of love and connection in ways words sometimes cannot. When these physical gestures stop or significantly decrease, it can be a clear sign that something is changing in the relationship. If your partner has stopped showing physical affection, it may indicate that they are no longer as emotionally invested as they once were. Physical affection is an important way of expressing love, comfort, and security in a relationship. In the beginning, couples often find themselves holding hands, cuddling on the couch, and exchanging spontaneous kisses. These actions create a sense of intimacy and connection, and they can make both partners feel cared for and valued. However, when physical affection starts to disappear, it can create a sense of distance and emotional coldness between the two of you. The absence of physical touch often begins subtly. At first, you may notice that the random hugs or hand-holding that were once frequent have become less common. The once welcomed kiss on the cheek before leaving for work may be replaced by a simple nod. These seemingly small changes can gradually build up, leaving you wondering why your partner no longer expresses physical affection the way they once did. It's important to understand that physical affection doesn't have to be limited to intimate moments. It can manifest in many ways: a comforting touch on the shoulder, a pat on the back, or just sitting close to each other. When these small gestures stop happening, it can feel like the warmth and affection you once shared have faded. It can leave you feeling rejected or unsure of your partner's feelings for you, as physical affection often reinforces emotional connection and trust. Sometimes, when physical affection starts to decline, it may be due to emotional withdrawal. When one person in the relationship begins to lose interest or emotionally distance themselves, they often stop initiating physical affection. This lack of physical closeness can serve as a defense mechanism to prevent further emotional entanglement, especially if they are trying to detach themselves from the relationship. It can also signal that they are no longer as comfortable or intimate with you as they once were. Additionally, when physical affection decreases, it can create a feeling of loneliness, even if you're physically together. While you may still spend time with your partner, the lack of touch can leave a void that's hard to fill with words or actions alone. Without physical affection, it's easy to feel disconnected or emotionally distant, leading to a breakdown in intimacy. Relationships thrive on mutual affection, and when one partner stops giving it, it can leave the other feeling unappreciated or unloved. In some cases, a partner may stop showing physical affection because they are experiencing stress, personal struggles, or dissatisfaction with other areas of the relationship. However, even in those cases, the absence of physical touch can still be a sign that something is wrong. Physical affection is often a way of coping with difficult emotions or maintaining closeness, so its absence may reflect an underlying issue that hasn't been addressed. The lack of physical affection also affects communication in the relationship. Touch is a non-verbal form of communication that can convey reassurance, care, and empathy. Without this, misunderstandings can arise, and the sense of emotional security that comes from physical closeness may diminish. Over time, this emotional and physical disconnect can create a wedge between partners, making it harder to reconnect and rebuild the bond that once existed. If your partner has stopped showing physical affection, it's important to address it directly. In some cases, the lack of affection may be due to stress or other external factors, and a simple conversation about it may help resolve the issue. However, if the lack of physical touch is a symptom of deeper emotional disengagement, it may require more in-depth reflection and communication about the future of the relationship. It's crucial to assess whether both partners are still committed to nurturing the emotional and physical connection that once existed. 5. They become more secretive about their life. When someone starts becoming secretive about their life, it often indicates a shift in their behavior or emotional state, particularly in a romantic relationship. Transparency and openness are vital aspects of a healthy relationship, fostering trust and communication between partners. However, when your partner begins to hide things or withholds information, it can create a sense of uncertainty and unease. This secrecy often signals that they are emotionally distancing themselves or are no longer as committed to maintaining the closeness that once existed. At the start of a relationship, most couples are eager to share details about their day-to-day lives, their thoughts, and their experiences. This sharing builds intimacy and trust, allowing both individuals to feel secure in the relationship. But when a partner starts becoming more secretive, they might stop offering personal updates or discussing things they used to share with ease. This sudden withdrawal can make you feel excluded or left in the dark, unsure of what is happening in their life. The signs of secrecy can vary, but they generally begin with small changes in behavior. Your partner might start keeping their phone face down or avoid letting you see their messages. They might take more private phone calls or become defensive when you ask about their day. What was once an open dialogue about each other's lives now becomes an awkward and guarded exchange. You may notice that they no longer volunteer information or hesitate to share details that were once open and transparent. The more they pull away from sharing, the more it can feel like they are intentionally keeping things from you. This shift towards secrecy can create an emotional wall, where communication starts to feel one-sided or strained. It's not just about the information being withheld, but also about the trust that is eroded in the process. When your partner is no longer willing to be open with you, it can make you feel disconnected and anxious. The absence of transparency can breed insecurity, as you start questioning what's going on in their life that they aren't sharing with you. In some cases, secrecy can be a sign that your partner is dealing with something they don't want you to know about. Whether it's a personal struggle, a conflict with family or friends, or even the emergence of feelings for someone else. The more your partner becomes secretive, the more it can feel like they are pulling away from the relationship and creating a space between you. This emotional distance can leave you feeling uncertain about the future of the relationship and whether your partner is still as invested in it as they once were. Secretive behavior also manifests when your partner becomes defensive or evasive, when you try to address their reluctance to share. If you ask them about a situation and they respond with frustration or dismissiveness, it may be a sign that they are intentionally avoiding the topic. They might even deflect your questions or offer vague responses, which only deepens the sense that something is being hidden. Instead of offering reassurance or clarity, their behavior may feel more like a shield, preventing you from getting close or understanding what's really going on in their life. Secrecy can also indicate a lack of trust in the relationship. If a partner feels that they can't be open with you, it might suggest that they no longer trust you in the same way they once did. Trust is built on communication and transparency, so when these elements start to disappear, the foundation of the relationship can begin to crumble. If your partner is pulling away and becoming secretive, it could be a sign that they are no longer as emotionally invested in maintaining that bond of trust. It's important to recognize that secrecy can sometimes be linked to other issues in the relationship, such as growing dissatisfaction or emotional detachment. If your partner is no longer comfortable sharing personal information or discussing their life with you, it may indicate that they are no longer as committed to the relationship as they once were. This behavior can create a sense of confusion and frustration, as you may be left wondering what has changed and what the future holds for the two of you. Addressing this change in behavior is crucial, as secrecy can lead to feelings of isolation and emotional disconnection. It's important to approach the situation calmly and with empathy, asking your partner about their feelings and what might be causing them to pull away. In some cases, they may be dealing with personal issues that they haven't shared yet. However, if their secrecy is a sign of deeper issues within the relationship, it's important to have an honest conversation about your concerns and what each of you needs moving forward. Ultimately, secrecy can be a sign that your partner is emotionally withdrawing, and it's important to recognize the impact this can have on the relationship. Communication and openness are essential in any partnership, and when these qualities are replaced by secrecy, it's important to address the underlying issues before they lead to further emotional distance. 6. They don't prioritize your needs anymore. When a partner stops prioritizing your needs, it can feel like a significant shift in the relationship, often signifying that the emotional investment that once existed has started to fade. In healthy relationships, both partners strive to support each other's needs, whether they are emotional, physical, or mental. Prioritizing each other's well-being fosters trust, intimacy, and mutual respect. However, when your partner no longer seems to care about meeting your needs, or is no longer responsive to your emotional requirements, it can create a sense of imbalance and emotional neglect. In the beginning stages of a relationship, partners are typically attuned to each other's needs. They're eager to make their significant other feel cared for, loved, and valued. Small gestures, like offering help when needed or making an effort to show appreciation, are common signs of attentiveness. When your partner stops prioritizing your needs, it can feel as though this sense of care and consideration has disappeared, leaving you wondering where the connection went. This change can show up in several ways. For instance, your partner may no longer listen to your concerns or show empathy when you're upset. If you're dealing with a stressful situation, they may seem indifferent or distracted instead of offering support. Their lack of effort can also manifest in less thoughtful gestures, such as neglecting to ask how your day was or forgetting important events in your life. This lack of attentiveness can create feelings of loneliness, as it might feel like you're no longer a priority in their life. When your needs are no longer being prioritized, it can lead to a feeling of emotional neglect. This is particularly hurtful when it happens in a romantic relationship, where both partners are expected to nurture and care for each other. If your partner no longer puts effort into meeting your needs, you may start to feel as though your emotional well-being is being overlooked. It's important to understand that relationships require effort and mutual care. When one partner stops prioritizing the other, it can create a sense of emotional abandonment, even if no overt actions of betrayal have occurred. The lack of prioritization can also lead to resentment over time. If your partner consistently ignores your needs while expecting you to meet theirs, it can create an imbalance in the relationship. You may start feeling taken for granted or that your feelings and desires are being dismissed. This sense of unreciprocated effort can lead to frustration and hurt, as the once balanced give and take of the relationship now feels lopsided. You may also start questioning whether your partner truly values you or if they are simply becoming complacent in the relationship. In some cases, the shift away from prioritizing your needs might be a sign that your partner is losing interest or becoming emotionally detached. If they stop engaging with your needs, whether emotional or practical, it could indicate that they no longer feel as connected to you as they once did. This withdrawal can stem from various factors, including dissatisfaction with the relationship, external stresses, or even a growing emotional distance. Regardless of the cause, when your partner becomes indifferent to your needs, it can leave you feeling unimportant and disconnected. It's also worth considering that sometimes individuals may not consciously realize they are neglecting their partner's needs. They may become so absorbed in their own lives, struggles, or distractions that they unintentionally overlook the emotional or physical needs of their significant other. However, this lack of awareness can still cause harm in the relationship, as both partners need to feel cared for and supported. If your partner's indifference is not addressed, it can lead to resentment, miscommunication, and an eventual breakdown of the relationship. Addressing this issue requires honest communication. If you feel that your needs are being neglected, it's important to talk to your partner about how this behavior is affecting you. Express how their actions, or lack of action, make you feel and the impact it's having on your emotional well-being. This conversation should be approached with empathy, focusing on how you both can work together to re-establish a sense of mutual care and understanding. Ultimately, when a partner stops prioritizing your needs, it's a sign that something has changed in the relationship. Whether it's a sign of emotional withdrawal, a shift in priorities, or a deeper dissatisfaction, it's important to address it directly. Relationships thrive when both partners make an effort to meet each other's needs, and when one partner stops doing so, it can create a sense of disconnection that's difficult to overcome without open communication and a willingness to re-engage emotionally. 7. They stop making an effort to resolve conflicts. When a partner stops making an effort to resolve conflicts, it can signal a deeper issue in the relationship, often indicating that they are no longer as invested in working through challenges or maintaining harmony. In any relationship, disagreements and conflicts are natural and inevitable. However, how couples handle conflict is a significant factor in the overall health of the relationship. Healthy relationships involve both partners actively engaging in problem solving, listening to each other's concerns, and finding ways to compromise. But when one partner stops making an effort to resolve conflicts, it can create an atmosphere of frustration, emotional distance, and even resentment. At the beginning of a relationship, couples often make a concerted effort to navigate conflicts with care. They discuss their differences, listen to each other's points of view, and try to find common ground. However, if your partner suddenly becomes passive or indifferent to conflict resolution, it might feel as if they are no longer interested in addressing the issues that arise. This can be particularly painful when you're emotionally invested in the relationship and are still trying to find ways to work through difficulties together. The inability or unwillingness to resolve conflicts often leads to a breakdown in communication. If your partner isn't making an effort to discuss the issue or address the problem, the conversation becomes one-sided. You might find yourself trying to talk through the conflict while they remain silent, dismissive, or avoidant. This lack of engagement in resolving the issue can make you feel unheard or ignored, increasing your sense of isolation within the relationship. Over time, if conflicts are left unresolved, small issues can snowball into bigger ones. When conflicts are ignored or dismissed, the underlying issues continue to fester and cause further tension. What might have started as a small misunderstanding or disagreement can grow into an ongoing problem that affects the overall dynamic of the relationship. The longer this pattern continues, the more difficult it becomes to re-establish healthy communication and resolve the issues that are causing strain. One of the reasons why a partner might stop making an effort to resolve conflicts could be that they are emotionally checked out of the relationship. If they no longer care about finding solutions or repairing the relationship, they might withdraw from the conflict altogether. This emotional detachment can be especially hurtful, as it can feel like they are no longer invested in you or the future of the partnership. Without a willingness to work through problems, the relationship can begin to deteriorate, and both partners may feel like they are drifting apart. Another reason why a partner might avoid conflict resolution is fear or discomfort with confrontation. Some people struggle with difficult conversations and may shut down or avoid the issue entirely rather than face it. However, in relationships, avoidance only prolongs the discomfort and prevents progress from being made. If this becomes a pattern, it can create a sense of imbalance, as one partner is left constantly trying to fix things while the other withdraws. This avoidance of conflict resolution can lead to frustration, as the efforts of one partner to improve the relationship are met with silence or resistance. The lack of effort to resolve conflicts can also point to a deeper dissatisfaction in the relationship. If your partner stops trying to resolve conflicts, it might indicate that they are no longer as emotionally invested or committed to the relationship. This withdrawal can happen slowly, with your partner becoming less engaged in both day-to-day interactions and important discussions about the future of the relationship. If they're no longer putting in the effort to make things work, it may feel like they've already given up on resolving the issues, leaving you feeling alone in the process. When conflict resolution is no longer a priority, it can lead to feelings of resentment. If you are the one who is always attempting to address issues or keep the peace, you might begin to feel like your efforts are unappreciated or ignored. This can breed frustration, as you may feel like you're carrying the weight of resolving conflicts on your own while your partner remains passive. Over time, this resentment can build up, making it even harder to have productive conversations about the relationship or resolve future conflicts. It's essential to address this issue if you notice that your partner is no longer making an effort to resolve conflicts. Ignoring the problem or allowing it to persist will only create more distance between you. Having an open, honest conversation about your concerns and how the lack of effort to resolve conflicts is affecting you can help to bring clarity to the situation. It's important to express your desire for mutual cooperation and understanding in conflict resolution, while also recognizing that both partners need to be equally invested in working through challenges. Ultimately, when a partner stops making an effort to resolve conflicts, it can signal a shift in the relationship. Whether it's due to emotional detachment, avoidance, or a deeper dissatisfaction. The absence of effort to work through issues can lead to emotional distance and, eventually, the breakdown of the relationship. Communication, compromise, and a shared commitment to resolving challenges are essential for a healthy, lasting partnership. If one partner stops making an effort, it's crucial to assess the overall dynamics of the relationship and decide whether both individuals are still willing to work together to rebuild and strengthen their connection. 8. They get annoyed over small things that didn't matter before. When a partner starts getting annoyed over small things that didn't matter before, it's often a sign that something has shifted in the relationship. Initially, minor issues or quirks that might have once been overlooked or even laughed off become the focus of irritation and frustration. These changes in behavior are often subtle, but can have a significant impact on the emotional dynamic between partners. What once seemed insignificant, like leaving the lights on or forgetting to take out the trash, suddenly becomes a source of tension and annoyance. This shift can leave you feeling confused and wondering why things that were never an issue are now causing such frustration. This change in behavior can be a result of growing emotional distance between partners. When a relationship is thriving, partners are more likely to overlook minor inconveniences or quirks because the emotional connection is strong. They understand each other's flaws and are generally more patient and forgiving. However, when the emotional bond weakens, small things can become magnified as the patience and tolerance that were once present start to dissipate. Things that were previously accepted as part of the relationship suddenly feel like irritants, and instead of addressing deeper issues, these trivial matters become convenient outlets for pent-up frustration. Another reason why small things might start causing annoyance is that unresolved feelings or resentments are building up. Instead of confronting the bigger issues that may be at the core of the relationship's problems, a partner might unconsciously project their anger or dissatisfaction onto smaller, more manageable irritants. For example, a person might be frustrated with their partner's lack of attention or emotional distance, but instead of addressing these issues directly, they begin to snap over things like the way their partner chews, leaves clothes around the house, or forgets to do minor tasks. These small irritations become symbolic of larger, unresolved feelings of hurt, neglect, or disappointment. The irritation over minor things can also be a sign of burnout or stress in other areas of life. Sometimes, external pressures, such as work stress, family issues, or personal struggles, can create a buildup of tension that spills over into the relationship. A person may feel overwhelmed or emotionally drained and, as a result, have less patience or tolerance for things that wouldn't normally bother them. In these cases, it's not necessarily the behavior of the partner that's causing the frustration, but rather the stress and emotional fatigue that are making it harder to deal with even the most minor inconveniences. On the other hand, a partner's annoyance over small things can also indicate a deeper dissatisfaction with the relationship itself. When someone is unhappy or unfulfilled in a relationship, they may begin to pick at the smallest details in an attempt to express their dissatisfaction. These annoyances are often a reflection of their frustration with the relationship, and the small irritations can serve as a way of subconsciously drawing attention to their unhappiness. In this scenario, the irritation is more about the underlying issues that are not being addressed, such as unmet emotional needs, a lack of connection, or feelings of resentment. This shift in behavior can also be a result of growing emotional detachment. When a partner is no longer emotionally connected or invested, they might start viewing even the most trivial things as a source of frustration. In a sense, the small annoyances serve as a way to avoid confronting the deeper, more painful issues at the heart of the relationship. It becomes easier to focus on the small stuff rather than facing the larger, more difficult emotions that are going unaddressed. If this pattern continues, it can create an environment of constant tension and frustration. What was once a loving and supportive relationship can feel more like a battleground of petty squabbles, with partners snapping at each other over things that once seemed insignificant. This cycle can become exhausting, as both partners may begin to feel like they're walking on eggshells, constantly trying to avoid triggering the next outburst. The relationship dynamic shifts from one of understanding and care to one of irritation and defensiveness. It's important to recognize when these small annoyances are becoming a recurring issue, as they can be a red flag that something deeper is going on. If a partner is consistently getting irritated over minor things, it's crucial to have an open conversation about what's really bothering them. Sometimes, it's a matter of addressing underlying frustrations, improving communication, or reconnecting emotionally. However, if these annoyances are a reflection of larger, unresolved issues in the relationship, it may be time to have a more serious discussion about the state of the partnership. Addressing this issue requires patience and understanding. Both partners need to be willing to acknowledge that something has shifted and be open to discussing what might be causing the frustration. It's important to approach the conversation without judgment or defensiveness, and to focus on resolving the deeper issues that are contributing to the irritation. While small things can be irritating, they often point to a larger, more significant problem that requires attention and care. In the end, when a partner starts getting annoyed over small things, it's a sign that the relationship is facing some deeper challenges. Whether it's due to emotional distance, unresolved conflict, or external stress. These irritations are often a symptom of a larger issue that needs to be addressed. By recognizing the pattern and taking the time to understand the underlying cause, couples can work together to rebuild their connection and prevent minor annoyances from turning into major roadblocks in the relationship. 9. They become emotionally distant and unresponsive. When a partner becomes emotionally distant and unresponsive, it can be one of the most painful signs in a relationship. It's as if a wall has been built between you, and the emotional closeness that once defined the relationship begins to fade. This emotional withdrawal might not be immediately noticeable, but over time, it can create an overwhelming sense of isolation. The partner who once shared their feelings, concerns, and joys with you now seems distant, as though they are living in a separate world. The conversation becomes shallow, and attempts to connect are met with silence or indifference. Initially, this emotional distance can be subtle. Perhaps your partner no longer shares their thoughts with you as freely, or they respond to your attempts to connect with one-word answers or short, non-committal replies. What once felt like an open dialogue now feels more like a monologue. You might find yourself asking, "What happened to us?" as you try to decipher the reasons behind the silence. The warmth and empathy that were once present are replaced with a coldness that leaves you feeling confused and abandoned. One of the primary reasons for emotional distance is often a growing dissatisfaction within the relationship. As the emotional connection weakens, it becomes harder for a partner to open up or engage with their significant other. When someone feels unfulfilled, overlooked, or disconnected, they may instinctively withdraw in order to protect themselves from further emotional hurt. The emotional distance is a defense mechanism, a way for the partner to create space between themselves and the discomfort or unhappiness they're feeling. Another possible cause of emotional detachment is the accumulation of unresolved conflict. If issues in the relationship have been left unaddressed for too long, they can fester and create a rift between partners. What once could have been minor disagreements or frustrations might have grown into more significant emotional barriers. In this case, emotional distance is a coping mechanism, an attempt to avoid confronting the tension that has built up. By withdrawing emotionally, the partner is signaling that they are no longer willing or able to engage in the same way as before. In some cases, emotional distance may stem from external stressors or pressures in the partner's life. If they are dealing with personal struggles, such as work-related stress, family issues, or health problems, they may not have the emotional energy or capacity to be fully present in the relationship. In these instances, the emotional withdrawal is not necessarily a sign of a failing relationship, but rather a reflection of the partner's inability to cope with the weight of their personal challenges. However, this does not mean that their detachment doesn't hurt or cause emotional strain for the other person. It's important to recognize that emotional distance can be a response to outside pressures, even if it leads to a sense of neglect in the relationship. Over time, as emotional distance becomes more pronounced, the relationship may start to feel more like a roommate situation than a romantic partnership. You may find that the emotional support you once relied on is no longer available. The small gestures of affection, the deep conversations, the shared experiences, all the things that made the relationship feel intimate and meaningful, begin to disappear. The emotional disconnect can leave both partners feeling lost and lonely, even when they are physically present in the same space. It's as though the relationship has become a shell of what it once was. This emotional detachment can be exacerbated by a lack of communication. If the partner becomes emotionally distant but does not explain the reason for their withdrawal, the other partner may feel rejected and frustrated. In the absence of an explanation, it's easy to misinterpret the silence as indifference or a lack of love. Without open dialogue, it becomes nearly impossible to address the underlying issues that are causing the emotional distance. The silence only deepens the sense of isolation and confusion, making it even harder to bridge the gap between partners. In some situations, emotional distance can signal a deeper issue, such as an unspoken desire to end the relationship. A partner who is no longer emotionally invested may withdraw as a way of gradually disengaging from the relationship. Instead of having a difficult conversation or confronting the reality of their feelings, they may choose to detach themselves, hoping the relationship will fizzle out on its own. This type of emotional distancing can be particularly painful because it leaves the other person in a state of uncertainty, unsure of whether the relationship can be salvaged or if it has already ended without any clear closure. It's important to address emotional distance as soon as it is noticed. While it can be a sign of deeper issues within the relationship, It can also be a cry for help. Sometimes, a partner withdraws emotionally because they feel neglected or unappreciated, and they don't know how to express their feelings. In these cases, the emotional distance might be a wake-up call, a signal that the relationship needs more attention, care, and communication in order to survive. If both partners are willing to open up and explore the underlying causes of the emotional detachment, it is possible to rebuild the connection and restore the intimacy that has been lost. On the other hand, if the emotional distance is a result of ongoing dissatisfaction or a lack of investment from one partner, it may be an indication that the relationship has run its course. In this case, it's important to evaluate whether both individuals are willing to put in the work to rebuild the connection or if it's time to part ways. While the process of emotional detachment can be painful, it can also serve as an opportunity for growth, both individually and as a couple. It's crucial to assess whether the emotional distance can be overcome, or whether it is an irreversible sign of a deeper disconnect. In any relationship, emotional intimacy is key to maintaining a strong and healthy bond. When one partner becomes emotionally distant and unresponsive, it is a sign that something has changed, whether due to dissatisfaction, unresolved conflict, external stressors, or a lack of communication. While it's a difficult situation to navigate, addressing the emotional distance early on is crucial in understanding whether the relationship can be saved or if it's time to move on. Emotional distance can be heartbreaking, but it can also be the catalyst for reflection and growth, both for the individuals involved and for the relationship as a whole. 10. They don't compliment you or make you feel special anymore. When a partner stops complimenting you or making you feel special, it can be a subtle yet significant sign that something has shifted in the relationship. Compliments, especially early in a relationship, serve as a way for partners to express admiration, affection, and appreciation. They build a sense of emotional connection and make both individuals feel valued and seen. Over time, however, as the novelty of the relationship wears off or the emotional bond weakens, those small affirmations can fade. This change in behavior may seem insignificant at first, but it can leave you feeling neglected, unimportant, or unloved. Initially, compliments may have flowed naturally between you and your partner. They would tell you how beautiful you looked, how proud they were of your accomplishments, or how much they appreciated your unique qualities. These words often reinforce the emotional intimacy in the relationship, reminding you that you were desired, loved, and admired. Over time, however, as one or both partners become less invested in the relationship, those compliments may stop. The partner who once made you feel special may now seem indifferent or unbothered by your appearance, achievements, or the little things you do for the relationship. This lack of compliments can be particularly hurtful because it signals a decrease in emotional investment. When compliments stop, it's easy to feel like you're no longer seen in the same way by your partner. You might begin to wonder if they still find you attractive, if they still value your presence, or if they simply don't care enough to acknowledge the effort you put into the relationship. What once felt like a partnership built on mutual respect and admiration may now feel one-sided, with you giving without receiving the emotional affirmation you once did. The absence of compliments can also point to a larger issue of emotional neglect. When a partner stops acknowledging the little things that make you unique and special, it often reflects a lack of attention to the emotional needs of the relationship. Compliments are not just about vanity or superficial praise. They are an important part of emotional communication. They help maintain the emotional connection between partners by showing that one person still notices, appreciates, and cherishes the other. Without these affirmations, the relationship can begin to feel hollow and disconnected. In some cases, a partner may not intentionally stop giving compliments, but may instead become complacent or take the other person for granted. They might assume that you already know how they feel about you, or they may have become so wrapped up in their own life that they forget to express affection or appreciation. While this lack of compliments might not stem from ill intentions, it can still have a negative impact on the relationship. Over time, the absence of positive reinforcement can create feelings of insecurity, self-doubt, and emotional withdrawal. Another reason why compliments might stop is the breakdown of communication. When partners no longer engage in meaningful conversations or spend quality time together, the opportunity to give compliments naturally diminishes. If the relationship becomes more about routine and less about emotional connection, small gestures of affection, like compliments, are often the first things to be neglected. The absence of these affirmations can feel like an emotional distance growing between the partners, and it can signal that the relationship has become more of a habit than a vibrant, emotionally fulfilling connection. Moreover, a partner who no longer compliments you may also be displaying signs of emotional withdrawal. As emotional distance increases, they may stop making an effort to express positive feelings or to show care and appreciation. This withdrawal can leave you feeling emotionally unimportant, as if your presence no longer brings any excitement or joy to your partner's life. It's easy to start wondering if the relationship is still meaningful or if your partner has lost interest in you completely. In some situations, the lack of compliments could indicate that your partner is no longer in love with you. They may still stay in the relationship out of comfort, obligation, or familiarity, but their feelings of affection may have faded. In this case, their failure to compliment you is a subtle way of signaling that they no longer hold the same emotional connection or admiration for you that they once did. The absence of compliments is often one of the first signs that love has diminished, and without open communication, it can be a painful realization. While the lack of compliments may not be an immediate cause for alarm, it's essential to pay attention to the overall context of the relationship. If other signs, such as emotional distance, lack of communication, and a growing sense of neglect, are also present, the absence of compliments is a clear indication that the emotional dynamic has changed. A healthy relationship thrives on emotional reciprocity, and when one partner stops expressing their admiration or appreciation, it can lead to a breakdown in the connection between the two people involved. However, it's also important to understand that not all relationships express affection in the same way. Some people may not be as verbal or may show their appreciation in different ways, such as through acts of service or quality time. If the lack of compliments is the only issue in the relationship and everything else seems positive, it might be worth discussing with your partner to understand if they have other ways of expressing their love. If you feel the lack of compliments is affecting your emotional well-being or causing you to question your worth in the relationship, it's important to have an open conversation with your partner. Expressing how you feel and sharing your need for affirmation can help bring awareness to the issue and potentially reignite the affection that has been lost. However, if the issue persists and is indicative of a deeper emotional detachment, it may be time to evaluate whether both partners are still fully invested in the relationship. In conclusion, when your partner stops complimenting you or making you feel special, it can be a sign of emotional disconnection, neglect, or dissatisfaction within the relationship. Compliments are a way to express love and admiration, and their absence can leave you feeling undervalued and unseen. If you notice this change, it's essential to reflect on the overall emotional health of the relationship and have a conversation with your partner to understand the reasons behind the shift. Emotional neglect, even in the form of a lack of compliments, is a serious issue that can lead to further detachment if left unaddressed. 11. They don't care about your well-being or feelings. When a partner no longer seems to care about your well-being or feelings, it's a strong indication that the emotional connection in the relationship is weakening or has already dissipated. In healthy relationships, caring about each other's emotional and physical state is fundamental. Partners naturally check in with each other, offering support, concern, and empathy when the other person is going through something challenging or difficult. However, when this emotional investment fades, it can leave you feeling isolated and unloved. The lack of care for your well-being manifests in various ways. For instance, when you're feeling down, stressed, or sick, a partner who cares will likely show concern, ask how they can help, or provide comfort. They might check in to see how you're doing after a rough day at work, or make sure you're okay if you've been dealing with personal issues. If your partner no longer does these things, it's a sign that their emotional involvement is declining. They might no longer make the effort to understand or acknowledge your emotional state, and they might not take any action to show they care about your feelings. This emotional detachment can be incredibly painful because it makes you feel like you're going through life on your own, even though you're in a relationship. It's as if you're no longer a priority in their life. Instead of sharing your joys, fears, and challenges with a supportive partner, you may feel like you're carrying the weight of your emotions by yourself. This lack of empathy and concern can lead to feelings of loneliness, frustration, and even resentment, as you might begin to question why you're in a relationship with someone who seems uninterested in your emotional needs. In addition to ignoring your emotional state, a partner who doesn't care about your well-being may fail to recognize the impact of their actions on you. They may dismiss your concerns when you express that something they did hurt you, or they might brush off your requests for attention or affection. Instead of validating your feelings and offering reassurance, they may become defensive or indifferent, leaving you feeling invalidated and unsupported. When this happens repeatedly, it can create a toxic dynamic in which your emotional needs are disregarded entirely. The lack of care for your well-being can also extend to physical aspects of your health. A partner who cares about you will notice if you're not feeling well, and they will offer help or take steps to ensure that you're okay. Whether it's offering to pick up medicine for you when you're sick or simply asking if you need rest, these small acts of care show that your partner is invested in your overall health and happiness. If they stop showing concern for your physical state and don't offer help when needed, it can be a sign that they've emotionally withdrawn from the relationship. When a partner stops caring about your well-being, it can also affect the way they interact with you on a day-to-day basis. They may stop engaging in simple gestures that show they care, like asking about your day, remembering important events or milestones, or showing interest in things that matter to you. The lack of attention and empathy in these small but significant moments can make you feel like your needs and feelings are no longer important to them. At times, this behavior may even go unnoticed by the partner who has stopped caring. They might not realize that their indifference is affecting you, especially if they've become emotionally distant or preoccupied with their own life. Sometimes a partner may also assume that you don't need reassurance or care because they believe you can handle things on your own. This lack of awareness can make the situation even more frustrating, as it can feel like you're invisible or unimportant to them. The impact of this emotional neglect can also lead to a sense of self-doubt. If your partner doesn't seem to care about your well-being, you might start questioning whether you're worthy of love, care, or attention. You may feel like you're the problem, or that you're asking for too much, when all you're seeking is the basic support and empathy that should naturally exist in a loving relationship. Over time, this can erode your self-esteem and make you feel like you're not enough for your partner, even though the problem lies in their lack of emotional investment. If this pattern continues without any effort to change, the relationship may begin to feel more like an obligation rather than a partnership. You might feel like you're living with a stranger rather than someone who should be your emotional confidant. The longer you stay in this type of relationship without addressing the issue, the more distant and disconnected you will become from your partner. Eventually, this could lead to a point where both parties feel like they're simply coexisting rather than thriving in a healthy, loving relationship. On the other hand, if you do raise concerns about your partner's lack of care, it's essential to watch how they respond. If they show a willingness to understand your feelings and make an effort to be more attentive, this could be a sign that they still care, but may have been unaware of their emotional withdrawal. However, if they dismiss your feelings, make you feel like you're overreacting, or refuse to take responsibility for their lack of concern, it's a red flag that they may no longer be invested in the relationship. In conclusion, When a partner no longer cares about your well-being or feelings, it signals a significant emotional shift in the relationship. This lack of empathy and attention can leave you feeling abandoned, lonely, and unsupported. Emotional neglect can be incredibly damaging, both to the relationship and to your self-esteem. If this behavior persists, it may be necessary to reevaluate the relationship and consider whether it's worth continuing with someone who is no longer emotionally available or invested in your happiness. Healthy relationships are built on mutual care, respect, and emotional support. And when those elements are absent, it's a sign that the foundation of the relationship may have cracked. 12. They no longer share their thoughts or feelings with you. When a partner stops sharing their thoughts or feelings with you, it can be one of the clearest signs that the emotional connection between you two has significantly weakened. Communication is a cornerstone of any healthy relationship, and when this key element begins to fade, it often signifies a shift in how the individual feels about the relationship itself. In a healthy, loving relationship, sharing personal thoughts, opinions, and feelings helps build intimacy and trust. It's through these conversations that partners learn more about each other's inner worlds, their dreams, fears, challenges, and personal experiences. When one partner stops opening up, it can leave the other person feeling isolated and uncertain about the relationship's status. At the beginning of a relationship, sharing personal thoughts and feelings comes naturally, often because there's excitement and a desire to deepen the connection. However, as time passes, if your partner stops being open with you, it may indicate that they no longer feel comfortable being vulnerable, or they've emotionally withdrawn. They might no longer see you as someone they can confide in, or they may not want to burden you with their inner struggles. This change can be incredibly hurtful, because it makes you feel like you're being shut out from an important part of your partner's life. Without open communication, you may find yourself wondering what's going on in their mind, especially if they seem emotionally distant or unavailable. You may begin to feel like you're walking on eggshells, unsure whether you should ask questions or give them space. This uncertainty creates an emotional gap between you two as you struggle to connect in a meaningful way. If your partner stops sharing their feelings, they might become more secretive about their day-to-day life. They could withhold information about their work, friends, or personal interests that they once eagerly discussed with you. They may avoid bringing up important topics that affect their emotional or mental state, such as stress, concerns, or desires. Instead of sharing these details with you, they may talk to others or keep their thoughts to themselves, further deepening the distance in the relationship. Another consequence of this emotional withdrawal is the sense of confusion it creates. When your partner no longer communicates openly, it's easy to start questioning what went wrong. You might wonder if you did something to cause this change, or if they've lost interest in you. The lack of transparency can make you feel like there's something hidden beneath the surface, something they aren't ready to share, which might leave you anxious and uncertain. Sometimes, this silence can also be a form of emotional protection for the person withdrawing. If your partner feels like they've been hurt in the past or are struggling with difficult emotions, they may stop sharing to avoid being vulnerable again. However, this lack of communication only leads to more emotional detachment and confusion. In other cases, they may have simply become indifferent to the relationship, no longer seeing the value in sharing their innermost thoughts with someone they no longer feel connected to. The emotional impact of this shift is profound. Without the openness that once existed, you might start feeling more like roommates or strangers than a couple. You may miss the deep conversations that once brought you closer, or feel like you're living parallel lives rather than sharing a life together. This breakdown in communication can lead to feelings of loneliness, even when you're physically in the same space. As time goes on, the lack of emotional sharing can turn into a vicious cycle. Your partner's silence can make you withdraw emotionally as well. You may start to pull back because you don't feel safe or secure in the relationship anymore, and this emotional distance only amplifies the gap between you two. Both of you may begin to feel increasingly isolated, but neither person may be willing to take the first step to address the issue. It's also important to consider how your partner's lack of communication affects the way you interact with each other. When one partner stops sharing, it can be difficult to know how to respond to their needs, support them through tough times, or celebrate successes with them. This lack of insight into their thoughts and emotions makes it harder for you to understand how they're feeling, leading to frustration or even resentment. In some relationships, the breakdown in communication may eventually result in the couple simply coexisting rather than genuinely connecting. Small talks about daily routines or surface-level discussions can replace the meaningful exchanges that once deepened your bond. Over time, this leads to a sense of emotional emptiness, where neither person feels truly understood or valued. If your partner no longer shares their thoughts or feelings, it's a sign that the emotional connection between you two is eroding. This withdrawal can signal that they're no longer invested in the relationship, or may be struggling with personal issues they don't feel comfortable discussing. While some partners may eventually open up again if the relationship improves, it's essential to address this lack of communication early on. Without honest and open conversations, the emotional gap will only grow wider, and it may become harder to rebuild the connection. If you notice this behavior, it's important to approach the situation with care and sensitivity. Gently express how you feel about the lack of communication and share your concerns in a non-accusatory way. It's possible that your partner is unaware of how their silence is affecting you, or they may need time to process their emotions before they can share them with you. However, if they continue to avoid sharing their feelings and show no interest in addressing the issue, it could be a sign that they're no longer emotionally invested in the relationship.